Welcome to Land and Legacy Podcast. This is your host, Adam Keith.
And Matt Dye.
And we have a special guest with us today, Mr. Zachary Shermer.
Zachary Shermer.
That's how I know you, because every time Matt calls you from his truck, it goes,
calling Zachary Shermer.
Another one, Siri says Zach.
Zach. So we have our guest, Zach Shermer, here, who has actually been with us a lot here lately, last spring.
And soon to be even more.
Yeah. He's going to be one of our main field producers for the Land and Legacy video series, but he's also here today to kind of tell his story, talk with us about kind of the process and the whole transition. Basically, Matt and I have covered it, but we have somebody else on here to talk about his transition from just an overall hunter to land manager, conservationist.
But that's all. The backstory, too, of how he even got filming. Like that story, I think, is really cool and helped probably, progress him as a hunter, land manager, basically being able to capture it all, capture those changes and those transitions, I would say has influence. But we're going to get the story from old Zach Shermer.
Shortly right here on the Land and Legacy Podcast on Sportsman's Nation Podcast Network. This week's podcast brought to you by RTP Outdoors, makers of the Genesis no-till drill, the Goliath crimper, and the groundbreaker food plot planting machine. You ready to get started?
Let's get started on this thing.
You're coming over here to this mic.
You guys better get cozy over there. This could be fun to watch.
We didn't really, just a little backstory. We were planning on kind of doing a podcast. We're like, what topics should we even cover? And Zach was here, and we're like, hey, why don't you jump in on this thing with us? So he's kind of fed to the wolves, and we weren't really prepared. He's sitting in the middle of Matt and I, and we're going to get
lucky guy.
Real close.
He's got a Land and Legacy sandwich going on right now.
I'm the hand.
Yeah.
But we've got some cool things that we're working with, some new things. We're not going to give it all away, but some additional features to the podcast that I think everyone's going to really, really enjoy. So that'll be coming out here recently, soon. But the films that we've been talking about, we're talking weeks away, if that, from being released. And we have, between Adam and I, our goals with these films, what it is that we want to do. The podcast has been exceptional for us, and we've been extremely blessed to have people tuning in and asking questions, learning from the podcast, and really just a year's time. I think this week is actually, we released our first podcast March 31st of 17. So we're coming up on really just a year of doing this podcast. So the response has been great, but we want to take it to the next level with information that's getting out there. And the video series is really the next step for us. And so overall, Adam, summarize some of the goals that you would like to see the films accomplish for people.
For me, for all along, I've always said that I hope that it's a inspiring series, whether that be through the podcast or even just social media posts, whatever it is. We inspire people to be better conservationists and more involved with the land, not just from the hunting aspect, but overall just trying to improve it and not just think about the benefit of the one species that we chase, but the benefit to all the other species that are trying to make a living on that same area and that same habitat. So that's been overall podcast. We want to motivate you to get out, improve the land. But on the video series, that's what I'm most excited about, because it'll give people the chance to actually see the stuff that we're talking about. So some of the things we cover, probably a lot of them, are so downright detailed that it's really hard to see exactly what we're talking about. So when we, for example, we'll say that when we're talking about timber stand improvement and hinge cutting and edge feathering, some of that stuff can be a little bit difficult to understand in a podcast, just hearing it. But now we'll be able to show them that when we're talking hinge cutting, we're not talking about hinge cutting the whole area. We're talking about small little pockets and one tree hinge cut
and
versus three other
cuts.
Yeah, right. So that'll be the one thing I'm really excited about. That give people a chance to really see exactly what we do and see the land and all the activities that we talk about so much.
Yeah, and you know, we could have gone different routes, I guess, in the way and the format that these films are produced in. And you know, we kind of had an idea, but really, and I know Zach's going to get into it more when he talks about, you know, the field producing and Slate and Glass being the overall producer of them. But it was kind of like, hey, this is what we kind of think we'd like to do. And then kind of said, all right, guys, this is your field. You guys know what to do. You know how to make it awesome. You know, kind of give us some reinforcement of a background, of a format that you think we could achieve those goals the best. And I think the setup and the way that they're going to be produced and shot is awesome. Yeah. I'm really looking forward for that kind of, I don't want to say like fresh look, but a different look of getting the information out there. That's gonna be really cool. So I'm excited for that. And two, the quality is just unreal.
It's a very cinematic approach to land management.
Yeah.
As far as
and informational.
Yeah.
So that aspect of things, like, hopefully it kind of sits you back in your seat and be like, wow, that's not only information packed, but just gorgeous to look at.
And I
not
think,
because that we're in frame or anything, but because
it's not them that's gorgeous.
No.
Exactly.
We know that.
Thanks, Zach. You can leave now.
I'll kind of add in here. Adam kind of hit on this, but I think the overall goal is that not loud enough?
There you go.
Okay.
There it is.
You're better now.
All right. I think the overall goal, and I don't want to speak for Nathaniel either with Slate and Glass, he's the producer, but I think you would agree that the overall goal for the viewer is to learn something.
Yeah.
And just being with these guys over, I don't know, almost the last year or so, going on field days with them and doing some filming stuff, I've learned a lot myself. And I think we want to convey that to the viewers. And we also, you know, we shoot for the highest quality we can. And I think that's something that not a ton of people are doing. So it's a little extra time and effort. Sure. But I think it's going to be a little bit more appealing for people to watch if it's shot in higher quality. And I think they might learn a little bit more, too, because it's going to be a little bit more interesting to watch, too.
Yeah, I think just the details of the films, like, it's not... You're going to be able to know for sure, like, oh, that's a white oak. That is what we saw this weekend. That's a water oak. Like, that is a swamp chestnut. Like, you will know because it's just the quality of things.
The detail.
Oh,
yeah.
It sits me back every time I go back and look at some of the stuff you guys shot. And I'm like, wow, that's awesome.
Well, for us, I mean, we look back and coming from like all the years of filming for myself and filming other shows, and it's just it's totally different kind of style for me to go from the very point shoot, film a deer hunt, different stuff, to now you're breaking out cameras that look all sorts of goofy to me.
Look like Transformers and stuff.
Yeah, like
what is that?
What is a box with a lens coming out the front? Like, that doesn't even look right.
Where are your buttons, dude? He's over here moving stuff and twisting and turning. I'm like, I don't... you just do you. I don't know what's going on.
How do you shoulder that thing?
Yeah.
They're heavy, too.
What is that thing Nathaniel always say? Look at the head on that thing.
Yeah. But it's so true, though. But, you know, that's where it's like, okay, you guys obviously know what the heck is going on. So here's kind of what we would like to accomplish, and you guys just do your work. You do your thing. You tell me where I need to step, where I need to stand, and hopefully that information through just in a regular conversation we're having with, you know, a landowner or just a hunting situation between Adam and I, like, it's just being captured, and I guess in its truest sense, if you will, like, not anything staged or anything. It's just like raw.
It's reality.
It's reality, yeah.
And I think going back to the original question you asked me is what about the film series? And this is just, I guess, a little bit, we're not so much educational right now on our habitat. We're just kind of giving you guys an idea of what's to come. I looked at the calendar. We're hoping to be releasing that first film, I think, next week.
Oh, boy.
And so,
yes.
But when we talk about this in inspiring, I think there's something to be said about trying to put something out there that's going to reach an audience that may not already be interested in it. Mm-hmm. So you think about the wives and the kids that maybe they're not hunters, maybe they're a little bit interested, they think it's cool, but now they see something that has them a little bit like, wow, that's really cool. It's kind of that documentary style, or where you're like, wow, that's, and reality side, to where there's personality, there's a personal feel to it, but there's also the content, the visual content that goes, wow, like it captivates you.
Yeah.
And I think that's what overall our whole goal is, to put out information. And that's one thing to say about the videos, is they may not be as downright to the details that we talk about in the podcast. That's kind of by design.
That is by design, because once that film is released, we can come back. We've got an hour 15 minutes to talk more in depth about the actual habitat. Maybe it's the dirty details of creating a bedding area thicket, or it is the dirty details of, you guys saw the composition of this timber unit, and we recommended that landowner how to go about using the hack and squirt treatment. And now that you have that image, we can go in detail in the podcast and talk about which trees specifically to try and select and remove and terminate in that exact unit. So it's going to be visual, but then still have that really informational packed podcast to correlate with that film.
Absolutely. So pretty well covered the visuals.
I'm so excited.
Yeah, I am too.
Can't tell.
Yeah, right. So I guess my biggest question, and to kind of introduce you, Zach, because again, we spent a lot of time together, and we've been able to share kind of stories of your passion of filming and capturing this stuff. And I think it's important for other people to use. Adam, we've shared ours about why we really kind of do what we do, and I think people who are passionate kind of have a similar story as to why and how they got so just in depth with their passion. So Zach, if you'll talk a little bit about how you kind of got started in filming, why you got started in filming, and kind of go from there.
Okay. So yeah, I pretty much grew up hunting. I'm from Ozark here, just south of Springfield. We're in Nixa right now, which is also my crosstown rival. So.
There you go.
But anyways, yeah, grew up hunting. Dad always took us out. Used to watch all the hunting videos, Outdoor Channel, all that stuff. But never really thought of like a career, or never really entered my mind that could be a possibility of a career. But even through college, I went to U of A with a marketing degree. Pretty much in college, my whole plan was to be in the pharmaceutical sales or medical type field.
Boring.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
A lot of traveling. But
you just bashed all the guys out there listening to our podcast in the medical field. Get out of here. Take away his mic.
They're probably in the car right now listening.
That's
you got
right.
a lot of car time. But anyway, so I did that for a few years. And like even in college, if you would have told me I would be filming hunts or anything, I'd be saying you're crazy. I would have never thought that was real. But so I guess it kind of all started. My first job, I had to move to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I lived up there for about a year. And just off a whim, I went to Best Buy, and I bought a little point and shoot camera.
Yeah.
Just a little Canon point and shoot, and I filmed a couple turkey hunts up there. I got one with my bow, and then I started editing on a little iPad.
Nice.
Yeah, a little iPad, and
With iMovie.
Yeah, with iMovie, and I was like, whoa, this is cool. It seems like there's like an infinite of possibilities you could do with this.
Right,
it's just
right.
Pure creation, and it's awesome. And a light bulb kind of went off in my head, and I thought at that point, all right, at some point, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know when that's going to be or what it's going to look like, but that's what I wanted to do. Fast forward about 3 years, I'm back home. I'm still in the pharmaceutical world, but I've learned a lot. I spent a lot of nights on YouTube learning.
Yeah,
Just tinkering around, editing and things like that. And it kind of came to a point where I just gathered up enough gear and enough skill to where I think I was able to make a career at this. And Nathaniel with Slate and Glass, he posted something on Facebook about a job opening with Slate and Glass. I think this was 3 years ago or so, but I was like, oh, this would be awesome. This might be the opportunity.
Right.
And I saw it's from Lebanon, Missouri, which is about an hour away. So I call him for an interview, and we just clicked. Like, we just got along. We have similar stories. And it didn't work out with the job then with him, but he's like, I'm going to save your number. I'm always looking for help on shoots. And he invited me to a shoot about 6 months to a year later or something. And I went on that shoot with them. It was a week-long shoot, and that light bulb that was in my head just exploded, and it turned into a spotlight. And I was like, this is it. I've got to find a way. So I took that leap of faith, started doing this full time. I do a lot of local real estate stuff too, but and Nathaniel's just been, he's been a blessing, man. Like he's helped me out a lot, showed me a lot, taught me a lot. There's a lot of intricate details and things like that.
Oh, yeah.
So he showed me a lot, and yeah, it just kind of flourished from there. Then now we have this local show with you guys, and we're super excited for this because we usually travel a ton. Especially this last year, we've been on the road a lot. So this is going to be a really awesome local show for us, and it's just going to be awesome. Like it's really cool, and I'm excited for it.
And I think, another really cool thing is it's not like we're all sticking to one farm. Like we're going to be on your own farm.
Exactly. Yeah, that's really cool. One thing you were saying there, Zach, it kind of hit me as a comparison, a parallel between, you're talking about, going out and shooting and filming the turkey hunt, and that was like a process of, okay, you were able to be a part of the filming aspect of it, the shooting aspect of it, and then the editing, and then you got like a kind of a final product. And that's what kind of clicked for me in my head was, that's kind of what Adam and I do. Like we'll go to a property and we evaluate it, we're on it, and we're a part of it, and then we come home and we put it all together, we edit it, if you will, and make a layout, and then give it back to the client, and they kind of see the full process. And it's kind of like when you release a film or whatever, they're your audience is able to take it in, and we give back a layout or consultation, a management plan. They're able to kind of take that information in, and kind of hopefully see those steps in which guided us to make the decisions or recommendations that we did. But you have a process and the things that you do for your field, and same for us. But learning that firsthand and learning those steps, I think it's kind of cool. Like I see parallels to it, so I can certainly appreciate like that learning process and just diving in and being such a big part of it. That's awesome.
What I got out of it was the self-taught.
Yes.
How it's like. It's very similar story. I mean, I've covered this a lot on a weekly basis about, I'm an ag major, but I work in the wildlife field. It's and I deal more with, instead of just white-tailed deer, but just overall habitat, and all that was self-taught basically. A lot of late nights. You said you were doing YouTube videos. I was reading books and articles and research
trial
articles,
and error in the field.
Trial and error in the field was a huge part for me. And then it came to really just watching the habitat when we walk around properties to where, oh, look, here's a non-native autumn olive used as a screen. Oh, look, it's everywhere now. Oh, I won't do that, and I will make sure I tell everybody else to not do that. Kind of,
right.
And I think, probably if somebody walked around with us during a turkey hunt or whatever, I would look like the biggest space head in the world, because I'm just like looking at everything.
You are.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Especially when turkeys aren't gobbling, you're just like looking around, well, man, I like this pinch. I could kill a deer here, or look at this little habitat feature, whatever it is. Yeah, you get a little spacey, and you're probably the same way. You're like, you're walking through the timber or something. Even if you don't have a camera, you're like, oh, that would be a beautiful shot. Like I could capture that in this way or whatever. I could see this coming together.
The leaves.
Yeah. But like that's just so funny. Like how everyone's mind, I feel like, in what they do or their passions, they're just so kind of ingrained. And if you're able to do what you love, you can't almost like step away from it. Like it's just a part of you, and you just do it, and you're happy to do it. And it's like, there's so much, I think, to say about doing things that you love.
And one thing that Adam said, too, that really stuck out to me was the trial and error. That was something I did a lot of. And it's something I didn't mention kind of on the story. Me and my best friends, I think, whenever we were in college, like when I'd come home on breaks and stuff, we would film all of our hunts. And it was just, like, it wasn't for any money. It was just for fun.
Yeah.
And that was like a major trial and error. Like, what worked? How do you set a tree or a camera in a tree? How do you use, just those little things? And it was okay to make a mistake then, because it didn't really matter. But it was a huge learning curve.
What buddies to not film in the future?
Oh.
I have that.
I'm going to send them this, and they're going to be like, well, one of my buddies worked with Adam there for a little bit, so he knows him very well. But anyway,
I guess we won't throw any names out there.
No, but those were good times, man. And I think the trial and error is a big aspect. I think for anything that you want to do, failing's a big part of that, and you can learn from those mistakes.
Oh, totally. Failure is one of the, we talk about it in the ag side of the world and the land management side, that failure is probably one of the best teachers, just because failure oftentimes results in a loss of money. Mm-hmm. And loss of money is a very, I did not like that, I will not do that again type scenario. So,
or you lose time when it comes to growing seasons, or like for you were shooting stuff and like, oh, did I capture the right shot? Oh, I didn't. Like, no, could be thought of as a waste of time. And for the wildlife side of things or the habitat side of things, like you do something and then it takes so much time to either, replenish the area, recover the mistake that you made, because growing seasons, so on. But it just takes time, and you learn through those processes. And there's nothing wrong with a little bit of failure, because if you can take that, basically it's a different form of criticism. And if you can take that and apply it to the better or advancement of your knowledge, then man, you're off to the races.
Yeah, I totally agree, 100%. I think it's definitely something that, I think about your story, Shermer, and I'm like, we have very similar paths, very similar directions, but with different things. As far as we want to tell a story to inspire people with our words and actions of land management, and you want to inspire people and teach people and tell a story with the lens.
Yes.
And so you're trying to work on telling a story that's with the lens and capture what's happening in front, and we're trying to tell a story in front of the camera about something different. But
yeah,
I think it's
I'm
very excited to see what all unfolds in the next year.
So we've already kind of in all this talked about what your goals are as a field producer for this, like what you want to see happen. Again, that's telling this story and sharing these stories, providing people with the value of a legacy that can be left on their properties and managing it the right way. So you kind of talked briefly on it about your hunting, if you will, career or time spent in the woods. Talk real quickly about your progression as a hunter. Kind of from when you started, how you got your start, and then where you are now and how that process has been.
Yeah, I'll tie into that too, the conservation aspect of it too, because
right.
So like I said, we grew up hunting. Start out with the turkey hunting. My dad got permission on this little piece of ground in Bolivar, Missouri, and those were some of the funnest times I've ever had turkey hunting, just following my dad's footsteps in the woods. But so yeah, we started hunting turkeys then, and then I think when I was probably about 14ish, somewhere in there, 13, my dad started bow hunting. And he had also purchased a piece of property up in Buffalo, Missouri, just about an hour north of here. And this piece of property is just like a slice of heaven for us. And I can't thank my dad enough, because I really think it kind of made the person that I am today, just being able to be out in the outdoors and hunt, just driving an hour from home.
That's why I love land.
Yeah,
it accomplishes so many different things for people. It's different times of their life. It means different things, and it's so, I don't know, consuming. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just takes on different things for different people.
Well, if you think it's a major part of my life and will always be that.
Right.
And I think that's the case for anyone that maybe grew up, had the luxury of growing up and having some land to hunt anytime you want. It's just ingrained in your life, and it always will be, and you'll have awesome memories there. But so yeah, we started hunting that, and this ground was your typical Ozark country, pretty hilly, maybe not quite as hilly down like in Branson area, but nice rolling hills and a lot of hardwood timber. And when I mean a lot, I mean it's 360 acres, and we probably have 300 acres of hard timber.
Right.
So I would say the first 10 years or so, we spent a lot of our time and effort on trying to do food plots, creating those openings, or the existing small old fields that we had, clearing those off and putting food in them. And we really focused on that a lot. And we thought, food is great, but we thought that was the only way to have good deer numbers.
Sure.
And we neglected our timber. And over, I would say the last year or so, meeting you guys, listening to your guys' podcast, shooting with you, visiting properties that are really incredible for wildlife, not just deer and turkey, but everything, butterflies, bees, quail, everything. It was an eye-opening experience to see those properties, and it has inspired me and my dad to get to work on our property,
Right.
and start managing that timber that we've let go over the last 10 or so years. So our mind has shifted to more of a conservation mindset instead of just big food plots, big deer. You
Right.
know, we want to hold as many deer and turkey as we possibly can
Sure.
on our property. And this last winter we put a lot of work in. My dad and I. He's been on the dozer, making edges on fields.
Yeah.
Creating natural habitat. I've spent a lot of time in the timber doing the hack and squirt, which I've learned from you guys, and running the chainsaw. A lot of sore backs, but I guess that's kind of just how it's progressed. Is we see the benefit of conserving the land that we have and making it the best we possibly can.
Right. You have a resource available to you guys, and now instead of just putting in the food plots, you're taking a different approach to things, and you're looking at, I guess, long-term investments of turnaround on the habitat and where emphasis lays now, and the benefit of that emphasis of putting it on the timber for various species.
And I'm not trying to down food plots, by the way.
No, and we're not either.
Yeah,
They play such an integral role to hunting success and overall forage and quality of forage provided. But that's one aspect of land management, and you guys have taken it to the next level and are focusing on different aspects beyond just food plots. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys had a pretty good season last year with sightings, and I think you were on deer early in the year, September
15th. Yeah.
You had some, I think we were texting back and forth and had some encounters, and then your dad was able to harvest. He killed 2 bucks, didn't he?
2 nice bucks. Yeah.
Yeah. But not just because of the work you did this year, but everything coming together. Improvements are being made and improvements are being seen in whether it's the deer herd or the successfulness of your hunting seasons. And that's, for Adam and I, that's what we love to hear. We love to hear, hey, I'm doing this. Oh, and then in return, this is kind of what happened. I experienced this, those texts and those phone calls. That's just like, sweet, man.
Yeah, and you guys did a field day at our place and gave us a lot of great information, things that we didn't really know, as far as creating these little bedding spots. Just different ways of thinking about land that we never really expected, and that was awesome. It was a great learning experience.
Well, and I hope people are kind of getting excited about this property because, like Adam talked about earlier, part of the films that we're going to shoot throughout the year, we're going to see this place. We want your work to be shown, and it's a great place, a great story to be able to tell. You and your dad out there working together on a family piece of property, and doing some of the recommendations. Again, seeing the success and seeing the other species flourishing, whether that is just more native vegetation out there. Or you guys got a heck of a turkey population. You guys do well in the spring. Maybe that increases, or just the number of poults you're seeing each year increases because of the work that you're doing.
Yeah, when you look at this habitat, you certainly can see that doing work outside of the food plots is certainly going to help the turkey population even more, because you go from, I think at your place you have very hard edge from food plot to mature timber, and that's pretty much it. There's not a whole lot of other things there. There's not a whole lot of, minus the grass right close to the house, but it's pretty hard edges, and it sounds like with your edge feathering and different things, and certainly the bedding thickets that you've created, you're creating better edge, and not only are you creating more edge, but you're softening those edges. There's more of a transition there. So, and it's all going to be very beneficial, not only the deer, but the turkeys. So.
Well, and I don't think we've even mentioned it. You guys are burning too. You guys are putting flame on the ground, and we've laid out some burn units. And when time allows, you guys are going to be making a big impact on the fact that, hey, we're putting what some of these units are 50 acres. Like
Yeah.
when you burn off these, like that's a lot of additional forage and cover. It's going to change the dynamic of that timber ground.
I think of whenever you start doing this work and you think about, you'll make the comment, or you automatically in your head you think, man, your place is going to be so much better than the neighbors.
Yeah.
But it's not to me, it's never about like, oh, this is going to be better than the neighbors, so the hunting's going to be so much better. Sure, that's awesome. You're going to have great hunting, but hopefully that motivates your neighbors to do the same thing.
Yeah.
And then when your neighbors get on board, you start getting bigger chunks of ground that are devoted to land management and improving it to where you have a huge chunk of ground, and hopefully, who knows, maybe we'll be ambitious and say it's spread across the country.
Yeah, there we go. But like
We got rid of eastern red cedar monoculture.
he had to say that, huh?
I can't go podcast without it.
No. But that's the value of doing the work and then sharing these stories, is whether it's a QDMA cooperative that you're starting in your area, and there's a new branch there kind of out of Buffalo that started, but just getting these like-minded hunters and land managers and private landowners together sharing the success stories is going to do that. So that's why having you on is important to the overall mission. Again, this is okay, we do have some lenses in front of us and stuff, but like you're able to share your story in a different light now, and more wildlife are going to be improved, more habitat's going to be improved. Like we're able to make an impact because of this story and the work that you're actively going out there and doing. Like you just talked about a sore back. You're like, oh my gosh, like sometimes like this stuff can get tiring. Like it's legit work. But hopefully for those people who are out there, they know, okay, when I've got a sore back, one, I'm making an improvement, but two, I've got to kind of share the success with people, whether it's taking a kid hunting or whether it's just talking about, the improvements on your property, so that they too can go out and do the same thing.
Yeah, I'm going to step back a little bit to something you guys were talking about earlier, and it kind of really triggered a thought in my head of, you talked about how your dad's purchase of that land was so crucial in making you basically who you are today, as far as that gave you guys an escape. It gave you a place to go and enjoy the outdoors. But you got to think about those people that don't have that opportunity. Yeah. And I think that's important for those of us that do have that to try and I know you did this because I've seen the videos and talk about taking your buddies and doing all that, but it's really important that the guys of us that have the land or have access to land selfishly don't just keep it to ourselves. We try to get other people, and especially now in 2018, when you look at the hunter numbers and the trends that we're facing, it is very, very important that we get other people involved, and not just the people that already have land that have that opportunity, but the people that haven't gone hunting or the kids that don't have that opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's really important that we get them out there.
For sure. And again, like you've got a story, and anyone who's got a story, like, be happy to have people on. Like this is fun because this is seeing the fruits of your labor and being able to share that. That's what this is all about. And the filming aspect of things is going to only increase that. And stories are great through a podcast, and they can be listened to anywhere and at any time. But we're trying to take it to the next level with these films and share that bond that people have, one with land, and the bond that the wildlife have with the land, the dependency of it, and just educating people on it. Like, I'm so pumped up about it. I can't help it.
And not just the bond with the land and the animals, but the bond that we have with each other as hunters, sharing that experience. Mm-hmm. And you mentioned this about your buddies and hunting with your dad and those relationships that were built. And you'd be hard pressed to find a relationship that's more rock solid than the one that you have with your buddy that you've sat around the campfire during hunting season and telling stories about the hunt. And I think about this. There's probably not a day, or it's at least 5 days a week that I don't think about the hunts that I had with my buddies when I was in high school and college. And those are the hunts that, like, I'm sorry, Matt. You and I spent a lot of time together in the last couple of years, and even Matt, but for some reason, you cannot beat those hunts with your buddies when you were growing up and learning the trade of hunting and being a successful hunter. And I look back, a lot of the stuff we did was so stupid, but my gosh, some of the stuff we figured out was so much fun and really basically laid the foundation of who we are today. And I think that's the most amazing thing about hunting to me.
Yeah, like you said, I think there's like that kind of, I don't know if it's a window, a time frame, but like where your memories that you have about some things are just so stinking concrete and rock solid. It's like that time frame, that window that I experienced all this was just so influential on who I am today. You know what I mean?
I think about that thing I shared with you. I don't know if I shared it on a podcast or not, but we talked about this on a road trip, Matt, whenever we said that at some point in your childhood, you and your buddies went out to play wiffle ball for the last time, and nobody even knew it.
Right. Yeah.
And that really hit me hard because I played a pile of wiffle ball growing up, and it was some of the most, like, when I think of my childhood, it's wiffle ball. That's pretty much it. And the wiffle ball on the farm, but it's kind of like that with hunting too, that with some of your hunting buddies, and it happens to all of us, that at one point in time you went hunting with your buddies for deer camp for the last time and nobody even knew it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something that we've really started to lose in the hunting culture, is this deer camp atmosphere. Now there's some people that are as strong as ever. I applaud you guys, and tear from my eye for you guys because you got something very special, but that's something that is kind of lost. There's this really competitive spirit anymore with the hunting world of
very much so.
You've got to remove whoever it is because you want to try and kill that big buck. But I would shoot. This is a pretty bold statement, but I would probably stick to shooting forky horns and does and have all my buddies around and hunting with me rather than trying to eliminate all of them and shoot a 200-inch deer. But that's just me. I think there's something really deep about the involvement and the people that are with you when you're hunting. And so going back to that 5 days a week, I think about hunting with my buddies. I don't just think about that. I think about working my butt off to try and find and build a property to where one time a year I can have all my buddies that I remember in, and we just have, maybe we go rabbit hunting and deer hunting, or quail hunting and deer hunting, or maybe maybe we're squirrel hunting.
Anything.
The last time we did this was my bachelor party 3 years ago, and we had 36 guys at my cabin. 25 of them stayed the night, or 28 of them, sorry. I mean, it looked like a military camp in that 4-bedroom farmhouse. I mean, there was cots everywhere,
sleeping bags,
and that was probably the most fun I've had in the last 5 years, is just because we had a squirrel hunting contest afterwards, or the next day,
right?
And it was like we broke off into, I think it was 5 teams, and we had you should have heard it.
I couldn't imagine the amount of 22 rounds. Just
it was we tried to hunt with 410s and shotguns, so everybody wasn't sending 22 bullets
in the air
everywhere. For safety reasons. So it'd be like you'd have a few guys shooting, like you'd hear like pew pew boom boom boom. And, it was so much fun. We got back, had the weigh in. It was just like, man, that is the stuff that I miss so much. And out of all the hunting stuff, I absolutely love the land management side, but I love the culture and the camaraderie about hunting.
Like this weekend, we were fortunate enough to be in Mississippi and meet we had met him prior, but share camp and share hunting with a new friend. And that was awesome. Like, that was so much fun. One, getting to learn that habitat, that farm, that property, and just the way things that him and his dad had grown up in, that camp nature and that hunting club nature that they had been a part of, and he was so ingrained with. Like, we got a little taste of it, and just be able to share that atmosphere. That was fun. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, that was fun, and it's always fun seeing, like you said, different cultures and how they've shared deer camp and how they share turkey camp. But that's funny that you mentioned that. We always have the Shermer deer camp, all of our close guys in our family, my uncle, my dad, my brother, he lives out in Denver. He comes in every year. Very first day of deer season, we always stay that whole weekend. It's the Shermer deer camp. And man, those are some of the funnest times I'll have on the farm. And it's not even, I mean, we don't usually even kill a lot of big bucks during gun season. It could just piling up the does or, say someone kills their first buck. It's just so much fun. And not to get too sentimental, but my grandfather had passed away, and he was always involved in deer camp, and my uncle, and he was always involved in deer camp, and they passed away the last couple of years. But I can remember we do the same thing in turkey camp. Yeah. My grandpa killed the last big old tom in the front yard.
That's awesome.
Yeah, man, that's it's just so cool. And those are memories that we'll never forget. No. None of us.
And you can't ever replace that memory. It's just so important. And I know you're gonna say something, Adam, but Zach, you shared a story of a camp. Back in, I think you went to Washington and on a Indian reservation or something like that, and that culture was something you had never really experienced before. But I'm gonna throw you under the bus to say, can you talk about that for a second? One, refresh my memory, but that I think I remember you saying like that experience for you was like, whoa.
Yeah, that was probably one of my favorite shoots this whole year. We were in Yakima, Washington, and we were on the Yakima Indian Reservation. And I think I'm probably going to get this wrong, but it's somewhere around 1.5 to 2 million acres. It's huge.
Whoa.
It's huge, and it's beautiful. We have, I think it was Mount Rainier in the background everywhere we went. But, man, those guys, they spend a lot of time in the outdoors, and they know how to hunt those mountains. They know where the elk are. They know where the mule deer are. And it's just, their culture is such a way that they have, like, if there's a funeral or a wedding, you go out and you eat wild game. And I think that's something that's missed a lot in our culture is the wild game aspect. That's one of the reasons we all hunt is because the wild game, like deer backstrap is better than a sirloin steak. I can tell you that right now. Whoa. But I mean, those guys,
you can come cook for me then.
They cherish the experience. They cherish the opportunity. It's part of their culture. And I wish America was like that, more geared towards that,
Yeah, that's. I remember like you were sharing that stories like just them in camp and their knowledge of where things were, that habitat, where to find game. I don't think you guys ended up killing, but like you guys. They had like meat and stuff that they shared. Like as guests, you guys, they're like they treated you as kings, and like that was their kind of gift to you. That hospitality of hey, like these are our resources here, and we've been able to manage them and harvest them, but like we want to share them. Like just pushed food on you guys.
Oh yeah. We ate great. We had a mountain camp, but we ate elk, mule deer every night over a fire.
Oh, that's so cool.
Oh, man, it was fun. And it snowed a bunch on us, and it was in October. It's harsh conditions, but it was awesome.
Yeah, I think to me, when you're talking about the food in camp, I don't even know where we're at in the notes. I saw you were looking, Matt. This is a hunting culture ramble. That's what this podcast is, which I'm totally cool with. Save us a little bit of break on the habitat side. Sorry, guys that are here listening for habitat. This is important to us just as much as the habitat. So we talk about we're going to get all sorts of sentimental this week on the podcast because when you're talking about the food at camp, there's certain meals that I automatically, we actually talked about this past weekend in Mississippi, the senses that take you back and the senses that like you just automatically, the smells about certain things in the woods that automatically take you back, and the sounds, and for me the taste of some of the food that you eat in deer camp. We could make biscuits and gravy, or biscuits and molasses and eggs and hash browns and bacon. Gotta have the bacon on the old wood camp stove at my cabin, and we could eat that meal. And then we could turn around with the exact same ingredients and make it here at home, and it would not taste the same.
No. You wouldn't have, the kitchen doesn't fill up with wood smoke.
No.
It fills up with just smoke from the bacon grease or something. But that, like, feeling of it being trapped like in that cabin and just you can't beat it. It's
No,
it's so different, but it's so it's unique to that situation.
Like, I will give you the month of October and hunting season, but don't you dare take away deer camp from me.
Yeah.
And there was years where I missed deer camp due to other work obligations, and deer camp continued on without me, but it was like a part of my heart was being ripped out and left right there because I couldn't experience that. So, man, deer camp or hunting camp food, another one that I think of it. And so that was the breakfast opening day of gun season for me. That was one of them. The other one that I always think about is on a riverbank or lake bank, hot dogs dipped. Take the hot dog and dip it in the barbecue jug or whatever, and you just dip it straight into it.
What?
I promise you, try this. This will be one of the best hot dogs you ever have. And you dip it into that, pull it out, put it on an open flame, and it's like a barbecue hot dog. And it is, you cannot beat it. I swear. You put that in on a lake bank, and this goes back to fishing for big walleye on the points during January and February, and we would do that. And I don't know if it was the fact that we're just really hungry and we always did that, but that's one of those meals. I haven't eaten it in years, but it would be like, if we did that right now, I'd be like, just close my eyes and I could picture.
You'd be on the bank again.
I'd be on the bank again. And I think that we're not just rambling about this because it's fun to talk about the old days, but it's something that as and Matt and I have hammered this, and we're going to continue hammering this for years to come.
Driving it home.
About getting people involved in the outdoors and how it is crucial that we find the things that can get the other people that aren't hunters into the outdoors. And maybe it's not even to get them to go and shoot a big deer or shoot even a deer. But I can promise our listeners and whoever it is that we talk to that if you were to pull a guy out of 10 guys out of a cubicle in New York City, and we were to take them to a hunting camp and put them around an open campfire, and we just started cooking, I guarantee you a lot of those guys would have a good time.
Oh,
and we could sleep in the next day and go drive around and try and kick up some rabbits, and I guarantee you their mind would start changing about the outdoors and going, it's not as crazy as I thought it was.
These people aren't ruthless killers.
Yeah.
These people are just having fun.
It's not about dipping dopey all over our boots and getting out there. And to me, it's just as much happening, what gets us out there is in the camp as it is in the outdoors or in the woods. So that's something that I hope that we try to get more people involved by just introducing them to deer camp. Because if more people are aware of what deer camp actually is, then I think there'd be so many more hunters out there.
Oh yeah, I don't doubt that at all. Those just experiences can't be beaten at all. And not to steer away from this talk, but Zach, you since filming here with us for the past couple of years, you've been part of some trips that we've taken, and talking about kind of going back to your property and that evaluation that you had and gave, kind of what it was, the timber, you had some openings, you kind of focused on food plots. Kind of two trips, I think, and we've had serious talks about them, whether it's on like the way home or afterwards, that just kind of were eye-opening, I guess, for you, and kind of takeaways from those trips that you now want to incorporate into your farm. One, I think hopefully a lot of people have seen the Laddie video of the property there in Delaware that we went to. Zach shot all that and put it all together, but we spent 3 days out there on his place and toured it and saw some incredible habitat. But that was something kind of new for you, that aspect of that property and that transition that had been and gone through. Then another one, Adam, we did that video for MDC on grazing diverse natives, and Zach put all that together. But that was another property that really, from a hunting aspect, it didn't have that much timber on it, but the wildlife value was incredible on that place. So talk about...
I don't even think they had food plots there either. And
I don't know. I
they
don't
were
think there was
sharing
a food plot.
pictures of all the stuff they've killed,
Studs.
and yeah, it's just
Like tons of turkeys. There was quail whistling all over this place, and I like you said, I don't think there was a food plot on it. Period. And there's
No.
a lady who talked about her experiences prior to them. Really, basically, what had been some fescue pasture and stuff, and then they started planting these diverse native species for grazing and implementing that rotation through that farm. And that changed things drastically from the hunting
and not
aspect.
even just warm season grasses, but they had native
Yeah.
cool season grasses.
Yeah.
And mixed with the forbs, and she was talking about seeing over 20 deer in one field, and I'm just like looking around, like,
Yeah.
where are they coming from? Like,
Right. Well, and she talked about shed hunting too. That first year, they didn't have like great success shed hunting, and then they found I can't remember the exact numbers, but I knew it was like over 80% of them were in that like newly planted diverse native stand that the cattle had kind of come back and grazed, and they had rotated through there. But that's where the food was, and it was all native. It wasn't a food plot, but like 80% of the sheds or more, I mean, it was a really big number, were found right there in like this 20-acre, what was a cool season fescue pasture, non-native. And then they started doing this work, and it was like, holy cow, the response was incredible. But Zach, I want you to talk about those two experiences and kind of how your thought process is after experiencing those.
So the one word I would say to summarize both of those properties is lush.
Ooh.
There was
Lush.
growth. I mean, growth like I've never seen before. The floor of the forest was grown all the way up, some points up to your hip. It was incredible. Laddie's was the same way. His timber was, I mean, he kind of started with a bare piece of ground. It was corn and I think soybean fields back in his dad farmed it. And he turned that place into just a wildlife farm pretty much. Everything is just lush green growth everywhere. Of course we went there in the summer, but wildflowers. He had wetland areas that just had beautiful wildflowers growing everywhere, and I'm sure deer love that habitat too when it's dried up. But it's very lush and green, and it was a huge eye-opening experience for me. And to tie this back into the video aspect for you guys, I know for me, I'm a visual learner, so I can, someone could say, oh, well, this is how you can do it, and this is what it'll look like. Someone could say that to me, and I might, yeah, I agree with that. But until I see it, then I'm like, oh,
seeing is believing.
that's what it looks like. So that's why I think bringing it back to the video for you guys, that's going to be powerful for people. Maybe they're a visual learner, and maybe they can watch an episode and say, oh, okay, this is the example that here's how you hack and squirt, and here's what it can turn into. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
So I think that's a visually seeing things is very powerful. And that was definitely the case for me going on those two properties and doing those shoots. And some things that I'm going to try to take away from those places, the MDC shoot out there, and I think Mansfield area, or just
it was Licking, Houston,
Texas County.
Texas County.
Yeah.
They had beautiful prairies, just wide open prairies, and we have a little part on our farm, and we call it our front yard, and it's 5 to 8 acres somewhere in there, and it's just grown up with sapling. I want to turn those into prairies like I saw out there if I can. That's something I wanted to take away from there. And then Laddie's, his timber was really incredible, and the way he used screens and edges, and those are things I'm going to take away from Laddie's property that I'd like to implement into ours.
Right. And those properties were, one was a farm, like a working ag production farm, and then the other was a still in use, a cattle producing farm. But changes had to be made. And yes, no longer is Laddie's, is he producing, crops on it. But I guess the point is the way, I guess when you get to a farm, so Zach, when you and your dad got that place, you're going to have to experience a change on that property. And we've talked about it before, and this is another point we tried to hammer home is don't be afraid of change on a property. Don't be afraid to manipulate things, because if you don't, then why expect things in the wildlife to change for the good? if things are left unmanaged, in many cases, then at some point the wildlife aren't going to be able to flourish as much. And so managing and changing, and Adam, you brought up a good point. I know it's a whole nother podcast topic, but you talked about this weekend things that need to be, sometimes the biggest thing that you can do on a property is remove stuff.
Yeah.
Not necessarily adding, but removing.
Yeah, and the reason for that was because how many times have we looked around and get asked the question, what can I plant? What can I do to help the wildlife? Well, that's a great mindset to have, but a large majority of the properties we go to are, you can plant something, you can add something, you can do something to help the wildlife, but the biggest thing, the biggest improvement that you can make is taking away something, and by that I mean, if you have closed canopy forest, remove the species that aren't providing any benefit. If you have a huge area that's just grown up old field and you have some natives trying to grow, but you have fescue, one of the biggest ways to improve it is not by planting more or burning, is going to be removing that non-native cool season grass. And so it's a different mindset, because frankly you can't sell something, but you can make a huge improvement by just removing the species that aren't providing benefit rather than trying to provide things that do benefit, if that makes sense. So that's kind of that'll be a whole nother podcast that we do later on, but that's definitely something that I think that is very important to consider when you're really trying to squeeze out every drop of the sponge, if you will, for wildlife management. But there was a point I wanted to make with you, Zach, was when we're comparing your farm and what you've done and what you guys have been doing, and you've gone to these other places, what if you were to pinpoint, and I'll just say it for you, but we'll go into your kind of now your transition of what you're doing. But when you think about those properties and you think about the timber, just the timber, because that's what, we call your farm the Big Woods Farm, is your timber is mature timber. It's closed canopy forest, and that's where it's a huge, probably 95% of the farm is that habitat. And then you think of those other two where there was wildlife everywhere. There's quail, turkeys, deer, butterflies, honeybees, whatever. The timber was totally different. There was all kinds of growth underneath, and Laddie's was once a crop field, so you don't have the years and years and years of growth. It's a younger
forest, yeah.
But you still have a forest, because what was DBH on those trees? Probably
anywhere from 8 to 10.
Yeah, 8 to 10, and you've got that on your place. It's scattered to where at one point it was probably open. It was, because we looked at Web Soil Survey. It was woodland, upland woodland. So you have these big woofy post oaks scattered around your timber, and big woofy white oaks, and then a bunch of 6 to 8 inch DBH trees scattered around, which once tells us that those trees probably weren't there. It was more just grass and forbs underneath these big old giant oaks. And so I think that's something that I may put words in your mouth, but seeing their properties and understanding what benefit they were having because of all that early succession and underbrush, and seeing it not existing on your place motivates you to go, how do I get that on my farm?
Right. And I think that's one thing we often talk about, is what should be there on a place from region to region, because the habitat has changed, the land use has changed across the country. We don't know what it should even look like. Most people don't have the idea, the sense of, oh, this is actually natural and should be here. So you've been able to see, Zach, now these areas that, oh, okay, that's natural. That's what should be happening here. And now you can kind of connect those two dots and be like, now I can replicate this at my place.
For example, when we looked up his place and we were like, oh yeah, your place should be an upland woodland. It's like, if you hearing it is going, oh, okay, a woodland. That just sounds like forest to me.
Sounds pretty.
But until you see a woodland and we say, oh, on that property that we shot for the diverse native grasslands, and you saw the open, kind of semi-open canopy and all the underbrush, that's more of a woodland. And you go, that's what I'm shooting for? Holy cow. I got to make some change.
Yeah, yeah.
So I think that's something that I enjoy. always talking to people that are new to it and understanding it and are really motivated to try and do that. Like Zach here, because he goes from planting the food plots and really devoting his time to that to I'll throw you under the bus here and I'll say I remember when we first started talking and you and Nathaniel would make fun of us because we would nerd out over
driving
grasses,
down the road or something.
native grasses and forests.
Look.
And they would be like, ooh.
Oh, is that blue stem?
Yeah.
Ooh.
And now you guys, or you especially, is really kind of like, I totally see what it is you guys geek out over now, because I've seen the properties where that is occurring, and I see how much wildlife is flourishing, as well as the farm. I mean, the first farm was a cattle farm that was doing really well, but with also really great wildlife. Yeah. And that's really hard to find in this country.
It is, but yeah, it's funny because Adam and I, like, after we get off from traveling down the road or something, and either like you or Nathaniel would make fun of us, we're like, they'll get it one day. And then, but seriously, like you and your mindset has changed because you've been able to experience that, and that experience that you've seen is what we want to do through these films. And that is the ultimate goal for what you've seen and experienced in the eye-opening, portion, recently, is what we want to do for other people. And you're going to be a part of that. And that's what I'm really excited about.
Yeah. And I know you guys have said this on the podcast before, but you're not just benefiting it. And this is one of the reasons why I've been so inspired to do this. You're not just benefiting it for the next season. Mm-hmm. It's going to be a transformation of our farm, and hopefully other people that get to watch this. It's going to be like that for a long time. And if me and my wife decide to have kids, they're going to enjoy it. You know what I mean?
For sure.
So it's just the legacy aspect of it, which is really awesome.
Totally.
For sure.
I think that's exactly kind of why we look at ourselves as being a little bit different, is because I often weigh kind of the pros and cons of saying how is this beneficial. And there were a couple podcasts ago where the pros was immediate benefit, but the con was long-term negative. And that's the kind of thing that we always are weighing out, of going, what does this practice that we're thinking about doing do to the habitat short-term versus long-term? And woodland restoration, glade restoration, savanna restoration, those are the long-term benefits, where when you go back to your farm when you first bought it, if you guys took pictures all around the farm and you saw, I don't know what year that was, but it was a long time ago, and you took pictures of the closed canopy forest, and then you take pictures of now, not a lot has changed. The trees have gotten a little bit bigger, but outside of that, it would have just continued to just creep along and creep along and creep along and not provide a huge benefit to the wildlife until either a tornado came through and knocked a pile of trees down, or beetles came in and killed a pile of trees. And then you started getting that underbrush, and then you would see that, and then it would just slowly transform back. So that constant management of trying to keep it more beneficial and what it really should be, woodland.
That's going to be awesome. You ready to do some Would You Rathers here?
Yeah, I'm ready. Would You Rather this week, brought to you by Redneck Outdoors, maker of the Redneck fiberglass blinds and all sorts of Redneck blind attachments. Accessories, there you go. So, Matt, you want to go first? And Shermer's going to get involved in this.
I'll go first. We have got the QDMA branch, and we've kind of talked about, how do we reach the community and stuff like this. So this is a unique question, something that's a little different. So would you rather, with the QDMA branch that we have, would you rather provide classroom material for high school, like the QDMA courses, things like that, or would you rather create a specific wildlife like scholarship for people, kids in the area, to apply for and try and get that scholarship? Which one?
Man, that's like saying, would you rather give a homeless man $100 or a person who just lost their job $100? Like, man, I don't know.
Both are good. It makes you think.
I will just say that I would probably I think a lot of our problems that we face in America today, not to get too deep or off subject, but can be solved by education on a very young scale. So education in the very beginning of time, in the classroom from a very young age, is a way to fix a lot of problems. To where, you can, man, this is terrible, but you can give somebody a scholarship, but at that age, there's a chance that they already have the direction figured out. By that time, they should kind of have an understanding of the direction or the field they're going to go into. And I'll get to it. Don't give me a look like I'm crazy. But
Are you guys
I would
listening to
say
this guy?
you can make a bigger impact long term by getting in the classroom at a very young age and getting those kids aware to where you're impacting maybe one or two kids with a scholarship, but getting them in the classroom, you're impacting the whole classroom. Mm-hmm. So that's what I would do.
Okay, that's what I thought. I just, it's one of those. It was a little different, but I was like, you know what? I hope that maybe some other people have the ability to possibly provide some classroom material for a local high school or something like that, or a middle school, and get some more people thinking about, habitat, land management, whitetail management. That's important.
Oh,
I think it can make a huge impact, year in and year out, just by providing the course material. And it's out there. Like they provide it. People are doing this. So if you have that interest, I think it's a great opportunity to provide that for a local school or community, whatever it may be.
Absolutely. And I think that's something that's a big part of why we started a QDMA branch back home, was that there's strength in numbers. And there's definitely strength in being associated with a conservation nonprofit organization like the QDMA or National Wild Turkey Federation or Quail Forever, to where a branch can do more than an individual, and a organization can do much more. So being associated with them allows us to use the power and the platform that they've built to reach places and go into schools that we probably couldn't do as two Joe Blows off the street who have a podcast. So, so I'm kind of still tossing around in my head, completely change my would you rather, just because we're kind of on this whole topic of hunting heritage and spreading the hunting heritage across the country. So, would you rather introduce a kid to the outdoors, take a kid who's got a dad who's already a hunter, or would you rather find a mom, a woman who, whatever, she's fallen on hard times and she's wanting to take more or be involved in the outdoors more or provide for her family more? Which one would you rather take?
A kid or a mom?
Yeah.
Darn you. Great question. There's not a wrong answer.
There
at
absolutely
all.
isn't.
And same
even
with mine.
Yeah.
There was not a wrong answer. I think that I would probably opt for the kid. Yeah. Again, for honestly the same reasons. He's younger. He has the ability, when he becomes attached, if you will, to hunting and overtaken by that passion, to influence additional people, more people than she would. However, I still wouldn't pass up an opportunity to introduce a mom who wants to provide for her family, and honestly who needs to feel that escape in the outdoors, that overwhelming, like, you're consumed by creation, you're just out there. Like, if she's falling on hard times, we talked about it in the What Gets You Outdoors podcast. Like, if I'm stressed, I've got something on my mind, like, the only place I want to be is just outside. I want to be in creation. I want to feel it. I want to be a part of it. That's a huge release and an opportunity to minister to her. Mm-hmm. I'd hate to want to pass up that opportunity as well,
I'll go a little bit opposite of that, because key word of that was said that the kid might likely have somebody else take him in the future. I think I said something like a dad possibly be able to take him. Yeah. So I'm banking on the fact that somebody will, and I'm going to try and take I would try and take the mom, because
Minor detail.
I think you didn't read the fine print.
Yeah, exactly.
And I would try and take her just because of the fact that I feel like women in the outdoors, especially those type of women that I described, aren't as involved. But I think that once they get involved, they're the ones that really change some minds and really turn some heads to going, wow, she's hunting now, like, and she's likely to preach that gospel of how much the outdoors changed her life, to where more and more people are going to jump on that bandwagon. So
yeah, for sure.
really, there is no wrong answer with either one of these. We're just really trying to get the wheels a turning to where people go, boy, I'm going to go take somebody hunting.
Yeah,
or I'm going to go start a QEMA branch, or whatever it is. So,
well, that was a heck of a podcast. I think it's always fun, having other people on, because you never really know the direction. Like, you have a plan, but then as soon as like conversation just gets started, you're like, oh, we're going to go on this little rabbit track over here and get distracted. But that's where good, honest conversation just is stemmed from.
It reminds me of a good rabbit hunt, like you said, to where you start, I'm going to head over, we're going to head northeast, and by the end of it, you've headed southwest, and you're like, how was that? Oh, it's because you chase rabbits all over the country.
Yeah. Oh,
so,
yeah. Great podcast.
Yeah, I think it was really... hopefully it was got the wheels turning, got people really thinking about introducing people to the outdoors, new ways to look at the outdoors, ways to get people hooked on the outdoors as far as deer camp and all that fun stuff. I there's not enough to be said about a good deer camp and getting people in those situations to really get them hooked.
And I'm again excited about these films, to be able to get out there and that be shared in addition, that's going to be awesome for people to see that and experience it, and just encourage more people to get out there. So it's coming. It's soon.
Here's my challenge for the listeners this week. I haven't done one of these in a while. Think a veteran.
Yeah,
we're sticking on the deep, meaningful trend this week. So think a veteran. This is something, obviously, I've got a lot of heartstrings out there for the veterans for obvious reasons, but then also I have a couple close ones to me. So very important that we understand what the veterans and the active serving military are providing for us right now. So thank you to all you guys that are veterans, have served and are serving. And for you guys who aren't, make sure you find those guys and thank them. Buy them an ice cream. Go send them out for a nice dinner with their wife.
That'd be nice.
So anyway, you guys got any final thoughts?
Thank you for having me, guys.
Thank you, Zach. I know we just kind of like, hey, you're here.
Yeah.
You want to sit down and do a podcast? But
Sure.
you nailed it. So I think people are going to love it, and we're looking forward to working with you more and getting on your place and showing people what the heck it's all about, and the transition that you guys are doing on it. It's going to be awesome.
Yeah, look forward to working with you guys.
Awesome. Well, we will catch you guys next time.
See ya. Thanks for listening to another episode of Land and Legacy's Hunting and Habitat Management Podcast. If you like what you hear, check us out at landandlegacy.tv. You can submit a viewer question right there, and we're answering on the podcast, or find us on Facebook and Instagram.
Feels pretty good knowing that from the beginning of time, God has called us to be a caretaker, gamekeeper, a manager of the land. So with that being said, don't you think we should do it all for the love of the land and the glory to God?